Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to the annual City of Indianapolis Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday celebration. I am very happy that we are able to come together today as a community to celebrate this great man. At this time, I would like everyone to please stand, if you are able, for the presentation of colors that will be conducted by the Joint Color Guard from the Indianapolis Metropolitan Police Department and the Marion County Sheriff's Office, and the singing of the national anthem by local jazz vocalist Evelyn Ray.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave through the night that a flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, land of the free and home of the brave.
Wow. Okay. If you please remain standing, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, if you'll please be seated. My apologies. We should have remained standing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. King was a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, the first intercollegiate Greek letter fraternity established for African American men, was founded on December 4th, 1906 at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York, by 7 college men who recognized the need for a strong bond of brotherhood among African descendants in this country. Today, members from the Indianapolis chapter, Iota Lambda, will conduct a wreath ceremony and a moment of silence in honor of Dr. King and his legacy. Gentlemen. If we'll bow our heads, please. Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite David Fredericks, Director for the Office of Minority and Women Business Development, to the podium to share a few remarks and introduce the Honorable Mayor, Joseph Hogsett.
Thank you, Ava. Good afternoon, everyone. In 1967, Dr. King stated in his book, "Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos Our Community," the economic highway to power has few entry lanes for Negroes. Nothing so vividly reveals the crushing impact of discrimination and the heritage of exclusion as the limited dimensions of Negro businesses in the most powerful economy in the world. Even in 1967, Dr. King understood the societal and economic importance of creating access to opportunities. This is the goal of the Office of Minority and Women Business Development. My team and I work every day with the goal in mind of helping diverse business owners grow and thrive. With that mandate and the support of the Mayor and the City County Council, we work to engage and assist as many diverse businesses as we can. We are hoping to highlight and uplift diverse businesses with programs like our Vendor of the Month initiative. We try to create opportunities to put certified businesses in the same room as those decision makers throughout the city. In 2022, we either hosted or participated in over 80 hours of outreach. In 2023, we plan to double that effort through our own workshops and events, and by working with our many community partners such as the Indiana Black Expo, the Urban League, the Indy Chamber, and the Indy Black Chamber. The issue of creating lanes to the economic highway is just as imperative today as it was in 1967. Maintaining and encouraging participation goals and taking a periodic review of the work through a disparity study is critical to creating that lane to economic prosperity that all Indianapolis residents deserve, no matter their creed, color, ability, or belief. At this time, I would like to introduce someone that I can unequivocally say is an advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion. My friend and leader, the 49th Mayor of the City of Indianapolis, the Honorable Joseph Joe Hogsett.
Well, good afternoon and welcome. First, my thanks to everyone joining us to celebrate the life and the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. I also want to recognize Director David Fredericks and the entire Office of Minority and Women Business Development. Once again, they bring us together in celebration of the coming holiday. And of course, on behalf of the city-county enterprise, I want to welcome today's keynote speaker, Dr. Khalila Shabazz of Butler University. Every third Monday in January, we celebrate a man who, even 50 years after his death, continues to inspire and lead us. Now, as this is a ceremony for city-county employees, I'd like to share a portion of what Dr. King had to say in speaking to an assembly of AFSCME workers in 1968. Dr. King was in Memphis, and during this time, the union had joined black sanitation employees in Memphis to fight for recognition and compensation that would match their white counterparts. Dr. King said to the AFSCME workers, "You are demanding that your city respect the dignity of all labor. Whenever you are engaged in work that serves humanity, it has dignity and it has worth." From our perspective, today, after the challenges of the last several years, it is impossible to imagine what our city would be without the labor done by the people in this room and all people engaged in the city-county enterprise. In that way, we are all servants to humanity, and our work has dignity, and it has worth. What we do in this building, on every floor, in every office, and out in the field, that work has dignity, and it has worth. That is why, as always, it is my honor and my privilege to serve alongside all of you for the people of Indianapolis, the city we call home. And on behalf of that city, I give you my thanks.
Thank you, Director Fredericks and Mayor Hogsett, for those wonderful remarks. At this time, I would like to invite Deputy Mayor of Neighborhood Engagement, Judith Thomas, to the podium to introduce our keynote speaker for today's celebration.
Good afternoon, everyone. Dr. Khalila Shabazz serves as the inaugural Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer at the wonderful Butler University, where she leads the development and execution of Butler's strategy around diversity, equity, and inclusion, ensuring initiatives are in alignment with and supportive of Butler University's vision, mission, and strategic goals. In short, the Butler Way. She holds a master's and PhD in higher education from Indiana University with a 21-year progressive career in higher education administration, DEIA work, and teaching. Dr. Shabazz is a cultural competency educator, say that fast, in higher education, and a dialogue facilitator designing and leading strategy and education efforts at organizations and companies across the country. She is an Indianapolis native and serves as the International Grand Anti-Grammaritis, did I get that correct, Secretary for Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, and is an active member of the Alpha Sigma chapter. She grew up steps from Butler University with her great-grandmother, Vivian Irene White Marbury, one of the 7 founders of Sigma Gamma Rho. Amazing. Indianapolis and Butler University recently hosted the amazing, historical, successful centennial celebration of the Sigma Gamma Rho that was founded on Butler University's campus in 1922. Dr. Shabazz was instrumental in the success of the celebration in 2022. So imagine Dr. Shabazz's great-grandmother over 100 years ago as a young woman, a student at Butler University, actively looking to change how the world is viewed and views African-American women, black women, in 1922. And now, look at her great-granddaughter, literally her dream come true, our dream come true, a legacy and a leader for this and next generations and many, many more to come. And think about this, when Dr. Shabazz opens the door of her office in Atherton Hall at Butler University, the first picture she sees is the historic picture of the founders of Sigma Gamma Rho and her great-grandmother. Imagine her looking down on her today. That is truly legacy. She is also the co-pilot of a blended family with 8 daughters and a grandson with the wonderful name of Brave. Her fun and relaxation time activities include cooking, traveling, and enjoying family and reading and shopping. She is a proud member of and an international officer and a founder legacy of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority, Inc. And now she's a Butler Bulldog. Welcome to the family. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Khalila Shabazz.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. So I hate when they ask for bios, and then someone takes the bio and adds in all this extra stuff. So I'm like, oh, thank you so much. So it's such an honor to be able to be with you all to celebrate such a great activist and leader and a fellow Capricorn. My birthday was Tuesday. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So I know how fabulous he was because I also am a Capricorn. I want to first start off by thanking the Office of Minority and Women Business Development, Ava Taylor, Deputy Mayor, and Butler University Trustee Judith Thomas, as well as extend my greetings to Mayor Hogsett and other city officials present, and just you all for joining and being here both physically and virtually to celebrate the life of Dr. King. It is never a small task when someone asks you to talk about such a giant. And I don't take it lightly at all. I kind of thought a lot about what I could talk to you differently about Dr. King and his legacy today. But I'm hopeful that the words that I do share in the few minutes that I have will bring honor to him as well as inspire you a little bit. So, back to my great-grandmother days, I had to read a lot. in elementary school. I went to IPS school 86. That was right there on the corner of 49th and Graceland, and I actually lived on 4857 Graceland, so that corner house. And I remember in grade school learning about Dr. King, and oftentimes we would get excerpts from his speech, and we have to stand up and, you'd have to say your few little lines of his I Have a Dream speech. But as I got older, I began to realize that Dr. King's legacy and his oratorical skills and his writing were so much deeper and bigger than just the I Have a Dream speech. And so one of his most pivotal pieces, I want to talk to you about that today, as well as another piece that I feel like personally resonated with me. So around this time, imagine 56 years ago, Dr. King packed up his family, January, coldest month, so I understand why, January and February, and went to the Caribbean. I just came back from the Caribbean at 2 o'clock this morning, actually, from Aruba. It was 80 degrees. Welcome to Indianapolis. Welcome home. But Dr. King decided to do something similar, maybe to celebrate his birthday, but really to kind of get away from the frontline activism work that he, tirelessly labored in day after day. So he packed up and went to Jamaica for a couple of months. And while on his time there, he spent a lot of time reflecting and relaxing. And as a part of the work that he did there, is where he actually penned his last book or text. And that book is titled, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? And it ended up being published in a year or so later. It actually got published after he passed away, or right before, I believe, he passed away. Let me clarify, before he was executed. He was murdered. But this particular text is really profound in that it speaks to many of the social advancements, but also still the injustices. So he took time to say, you know what, I want to reflect on the continued civil rights movement and all the gains that we've made. And he's speaking to lots of people, but he's really speaking to Black Americans, saying, hey, here are the things that we've accomplished, but here are still the things that still need to be addressed in our world. And so he's talking all about these injustices. And he also was talking about, the new Voting Rights Act and the responsibilities that we have to execute that right and to vote now that the law was in effect. He also talked a lot about the need for Black individuals and white individuals to pay close attention to societal needs and to unite in order to fight those injustices such as poverty, inequities in pay, education, and housing. So those were the kind of the main things that he talked about in that text. But it's actually quite hard, if you get a chance to read that book or if you've read it, to not imagine the fact that he is talking about today, 2023, and not necessarily just 1967. Because everything that he talked about is still relevant today. His text is a constant reminder that this work must continue. So I actually highly recommend it. You can order it off of Amazon. So that you can also have a moment of reflection and renewal about the work that lies ahead of us. But I want to take us back a little bit before then, about a decade prior to him writing that text. On December 12th, 1958, does that date ring a bell? No? Okay. Dr. King visited the city of Indianapolis. And according to the Indianapolis Recorder, he was a guest of the Senate Avenue YMCA. He was eagerly received by over 4,000 people, so much so that they had to move his speech, to the Cato Tabernacle, which sat mere blocks from where we actually are now on the corner of New Jersey and Ohio Street. So not far from where we are, right? Known to predominantly travel the South, Dr. King had actually visited the North, and particularly Indianapolis, a few times, but this was likely his last visit to our city, one that I think was incredibly impactful, and one where the themes of what he talked about with us are the very things that he talked about in his other books and texts and speeches. So what's interesting about that particular visit that Dr. King made to Indianapolis is 3 months prior to that, there was an assassination attempt on his life. He was stabbed multiple times, but that did not derail his advocacy and his activism and his work. He traveled to Indianapolis alone to come and speak to our community and to talk about the things that we in our city were advocating for. And so his speech on that day, he titled, "Remaining Awake Through a Revolution." That's what he talked to the Indianapolis community about, remaining awake through a revolution. He also wrote about it in his book, Where Do We Go From Here? One of the interesting things and stories that he talked about in that speech that night that subsequently ended up in the book was the story of Rip Van Winkle. People know about Rip Van Winkle? He's this Dutch-American villager, so it's a story. Now, you know, I had to look it up. I'm a researcher, so I had to look it up and see, was Rip Van Winkle real? Like a real person? I think there are a lot of Rip Van Winkles walking around us today. That's a whole nother story. So Rip Van Winkle is this Dutch-American villager, and he really existed to live his life as idle as he could. He did not want to work. He didn't want to do anything. So he met this group of individuals who needed some help taking what I would probably equate to a keg of beer up on the mountain top. And so he helps them up the mountain and decides that now he's made friends with these folks, he's going to partake with them and drink, and drink, and drink. So he got so drunk that he fell asleep, okay? So Rip Van Winkle drinks too much. He falls asleep in the Catskill Mountains. That's fine. Many people have had hangovers and fall asleep. But what's interesting is he slept for 20 years. 20 years, okay, up on that mountain. And he comes back down the mountain and he's like, wait a minute, what's happened here? How did I vote in the election? And what has happened? And all these things have changed right under his nose while he was sleeping. So when I think about why Dr. King talked about Rip Van Winkle to us, folks here in Indianapolis back when he did, I can only imagine that he was trying to see who in the audience was sleeping. Who was, you know, sleepwalking, who was just completely asleep and oblivious to the things that were happening right here in our city and in our country and in our world. So I can imagine him probably standing there and talking to the people about how we can no longer be or stay asleep because there is a revolution happening. We are in a continual revolution. So he told the audience on that day, according to the recorder, that one of the great liabilities of life is that all too many people find themselves living amid a great period of social change. And yet they fail to develop the new attitudes, the new mental responses that the new situation demands. They end up sleeping through a revolution. So can you think about that? He's talking to these people, to us, our people, in 1958. About how much new things were available in our city, right? We have new technologies. Think about where we were in 1958. But how, instead of us adapting and adjusting how we actively serve and fix and address the inequities in our community, we were refusing, because we're sleeping and sleepwalking, to kind of conform or reform to what is now presented to us and how we need to handle our situations. So as we continue to navigate these same injustices that presented themselves and present themselves today in more sophisticated ways, you know, there are many of us in here that might be napping or fast asleep, or we think that things that Dr. King advocated for have been achieved. But unfortunately, while we have made great progress, we still remain somewhat far from those I have a dream tenets. Right here in our own city, we're battling racial injustices, homelessness, crime, poverty, inequities in our education system. We're still striving for equitable rights for women and members of the LGBTQ+ community, adequate support for mental health. And we have a whole host of people who are solely worried just about themselves. But King said that, which I believe is important now, that we are challenged to develop a world perspective. No individual can live alone. No nation can live alone. And anyone who feels that they can live alone is sleeping through a revolution. We not only need to come together, but we must do so by being awakened to what is really happening around us, not only globally, but right here in Indianapolis. So perhaps we need to be awakened or reminded that we have a light. We have a light in our city that guides us or can guide us through. Here in Indy, I believe we have, you know, this strong light that can serve as a wake-up call if you need it, so we don't simply sleep through our current revolution, as Dr. King warned us against. So our flag, our state flag, embodies a torch, right? That's a light. I don't know how many of you sleep with the lights on, but it doesn't work for me. So a light's gonna wake me up. The flag that has this torch, the torch stands for liberty and enlightenment. And those rays that surround our torch represent their far-reaching influence. Then we also have another symbol. Atop the monument circle, anybody know who that is? That's victory. So the statue that stands at the top of our monument circle is Victory, or who some call Miss Indiana. Victory has a sword in her hand that represents her name, Victory. She has an eagle atop of her head, which represents freedom. And also lifted high in her hand is a what? A torch. You know I'm a teacher, so we call and response is good sometimes. This torch that's in Victory's hand symbolizes the light of civilization. Each of these symbols of our own city reflect the hope that Dr. King was fueled by. I believe one of the best ways that we can keep Dr. Martin Luther King's legacy alive is to realize our individual and collective power in keeping the torch lit and held high. The torch, associated with the place that we all currently live, work, and play, should represent this hope. Hope that encourages us to continue to acknowledge, face, and fight our injustices together. Like Indiana's Victory, the statue, if we're human, and Dr. King, I imagine that the torch, or the time to hold that torch in real life, would be a little difficult, which is why we have to have each other, because it can get heavy at times, just like the fight for justice. However, I'm reminded of the torchbearers at the start of the Olympic Games. I remember watching the crowds, you know those crowds, everybody's screaming and the person is running with the torch. And these people are anticipating the passing of the torch. The torchbearers standing there waiting, right? Eagerly anticipating getting the torch to keep on going to pass it to the next one. They'd run through the cities in pursuit of the next torchbearer. Dr. King was one of the original torchbearers. Many of the other ones are in this room. It took the collective that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. spoke of to keep the momentum going, just like the Olympic Games and the trials, and they're passing that torch. everybody cheering you on, you're going to reach a little longer and harder. You're going to pass that torch a little stronger. So as I close, I told you it'd be a few minutes, I challenge you to ask yourself, are you sleeping through the revolution? Or are you doing your part to carry the torch or support those who are? It's important for each of us to care about what is happening in our world, to connect with others in our world, and continue the fight toward justice. You know why? Because the torch won't simply carry itself. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Shabazz, for those very inspirational words, for the lesson. At this time, I would like to invite Director Fredericks and Mayor Hogsett and Ashley Gervitz to join me at the podium. Last year, the Office of Minority and Women Business Development chose to award a community impact award to acknowledge service above and beyond. Lindsay Mentz, who headed up the Jewish Community Relations Council for many years, was our inaugural recipient of that award. This year, we are honored to present the Dr. MLK Community Impact Award to Ashley, who currently serves as the Chief Executive Officer for the United Northeast Community Development Corporation, Alliance for Northeast Unification. As a dedicated leader and neighbor to her Northeast Indianapolis community, she believes in bringing together a dedicated collective, and that's a word that was used here today, to have neighbors, community stakeholders, and decision makers to improve and strengthen the quality of life. Thank you for your service and commitment to Indianapolis, Ashley. Please join me in saluting Ashley with a round of applause. I'd like to invite you to say a few words.
Thank you for the honor. I think Dr. Shabazz wrapped up what this award means to me. We all have dreams. We're taught when we're little that if we can stick to it, we can make it happen. And so I really appreciate the honoring of this award, especially as we in Northeast Indianapolis, we have 3 zip codes that come together, 46218, 46226, and 46205. About 57,000 residents. The heart of the pandemic with 1 grocery store, limited access to means of what employment means, we dream together. And so with this award, it really means the world to me, and also through the leadership of Mayor Hogsett, Director Fredericks, and also all the amazing work you do, Ava, as well, through the office. It means a lot, and it's reflective that we can continue to march on. The torch bearing is not just in the award, but it's a constant reminder to keep on path And along that path, it's not just you, but it's a community thing. And so this award a lot means to me, that we will continue to do the true community work. So thank you again for the opportunity.
At this time, I'd like to welcome local jazz vocalist Evelyn Ray to grace us with a song of reflection and uplift.
Ava, thank you so much for allowing me to be here again this year. I have been so inspired by Dr. Shabazz's words to the mayor, deputy mayor, and to this great community. I'm sure I've seen some of you out in the community. I stepped out in jazz because I had spent many of my formative years in growing up in ministry and church, but the salt had to get out of the salt shaker, right? So I stepped out in jazz and I began to perform here locally. I've performed over in Ghana, and it's just been a wonderful journey. I want you all to put your hands on your hearts. I had another song prepared, but in the inspiration of the moment, I'm going to do what jazz does. It's called improvisation and inspiration. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Because God gave it to me, and I'm gonna let it shine. Do I have any witnesses? All in my home, oh yeah, I'm gonna let it shine. All in my home, Lord knows I'm gonna let it shine. All in my home, I'm gonna let it shine. Gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine all in my community, yeah. I'm gonna let it shine all in my community. I'm gonna let it shine all in my community, yeah. I'm gonna let it shine. Gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine all through the revolution. I'm gonna let it shine, yeah, all through this revolution. I'm gonna let it shine. We've got children killing teachers, police, they don't understand. People are losing hope. What's become of man? But I'm gonna let my little light shine. To yourselves. Would you stand with me while we sing our national anthem, Negro national anthem? Lift every voice and sing. Thank you so much. Please look at the words. Can you turn that up just a little bit for us? Yes. All right, y'all, here we go. We're gonna sing it together. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven
Thank you so much, Evelyn. Before I close things out today, I'd just like to take a moment to reflect on many of just the words that we shared here today. In the program, if you will note, bravery, unity, victory, collective, community, neighbors, all important words in what we do. And we need to not only speak them, we need to live them. So I encourage everyone here with us in person and those who have chose to join us virtually to please, in this new year, put those things first as we move together as a community. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our participants who so graciously volunteered their time and talent to make this event today very special. As I call your name, if you would please stand and be recognized. I know that the men and women of the Honor Guard are no longer here with us. They have departed for the day, but certainly want to thank them for their service. Indianapolis jazz vocalist Evelyn Ray. The men of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, Iota Lambda Chapter. Dr. Khalila Shabazz, Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer at Butler University, but a proud graduate of Indiana University. And finally, thank you to Mayor Hogsett for taking time away from your busy schedule to join us in celebrating the life and legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge my team, Director Fredericks, Mr. Ron Franklin, Ms. Kat Rodriguez, Mr. Joseph Lee. Is Mr. Fahad Beg here with us? And Debbie Rodriguez, Debbie Ricones Chavez. Thank you all. That concludes our program for today. We will have photo opportunities, so I encourage you to stay if you would like. Thank you again, and have a wonderful, safe weekend, and take advantage of the many things that are happening around the city in honor of Dr. King this weekend. Thank you.